Hey guys, it's Gwen. I have a really fun fall DIY video for you, and I'm excited to share these ideas I have. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and please give me a thumbs up if you do. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And also, if you are a current subscriber or should be, please check that you still are, because I've noticed that some subscribers have dwindled, and I just want to make sure that it's not YouTube doing it and that it was actually intentional. So if you still want to be subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you follow me for more DIY crafting. Let's move on to these projects. So first thing I'm using are these pumpkin decor. They're like these standing decor pieces they bring out every year. This one I've had in my stash for a few years. I had these extras that I never got around to using. So first thing I'm going to do is remove the stand that it comes on. I'm essentially going to be doing or using these pumpkins as a template for this first DIY. But you will see here as the video moves along that I will be using these pumpkins to actually DIY with. Just for this first DIY though, I am going to use them just simply to use as my template, because I did need two pumpkins that were these sizes, that were two different sizes and shapes, to create this fall wall art decor. So as you saw here, I just took each pumpkin and just traced around onto this flat canvas panel. This is also from the Dollar Tree, and this is an 11 by 14 size canvas panel that you can easily find at Dollar Tree. But if you don't have a flat canvas, you can also use like a stretched canvas or a foam core board, or even a wood decor piece that's just like that you can DIY or like you can repurpose. Then after my pumpkins were traced out, I went ahead and used some of this really pretty neutral colored chalk paint. It's by Art Minds, I believe. It's from Michaels, and it's in the color Oyster. I really love this color. It's very pale. I don't really know what color it is per se, but it is very neutral. It has sort of hints and undertones of like grays and purples, but it's definitely a neutral that can go with a lot of things. So I decided to use this as my backdrop or my background. I just took a paintbrush, as you can see me here doing, just giving this a good coat and just going around carefully around those pumpkin traces or outlines. And then I think I just took one heavy coat just to cover this, and I just used my heat tool to speed up the drying process, because the next step will involve some fabric pieces that are from the Dollar Tree. Now, I forgot to mention that these projects I have to share with you are all based around textures. So I'm really into a lot of textures and coziness for my fall DIY. So you will see that I do use a lot of fabric pieces as well as roping or cording, just to add like the texture that I was trying to achieve. So first thing I did was created some outlines of the, I don't know what you want to call it, but pumpkins have like that sort of veining or something like that's drawn, or that sort of creates the shape of the pumpkin. I'm not sure if that's the correct term, but I'll call it veining. I'm essentially creating the veining using these fabric pieces, and this is the brown fuzzy fabric. They had an assortment of colors. I'm using brown as well as that mustard yellow and also an off-white color. I do believe they had orange, but at the time when I picked these up, I wasn't necessarily thinking fall decor, so I should have picked it up when I had the chance. But I'm just going to go ahead and use the brown, and this is just free-handed. I sort of traced out what I thought the shape should be and then use that as my guide to cut these shapes out. Now, there's no rhyme or reason, just visualize how like the veining part of the pumpkin is, and then just cut into the fabric to create those shapes. As you can see, I had to continually make adjustments to it because the shape was a little off, so I had to keep taking off and shaping it to the way I wanted it to look. And I also wanted to make it thin enough so that you know, my veining wasn't like too big, and that I was able to do a total of 4 just for more detail. So I took this off-white colored fuzzy fabric and then just traced around the pumpkin, and that's going to be the background of the first pumpkin, the taller pumpkin. And then this is just going to make it easier, so when I add my brown light colored fabric, all I need is the 4 pieces just to create like that vein look of the pumpkin. So at least you can't see the canvas panel in the background. You'll see the fabric in the background, and that's essentially the look I was trying to go for. So I just continued tracing out, not necessarily tracing, but using the templates, using the first few pieces I cut out as templates so that I can create the shape that I needed to create those veining. And I just needed a total of 4 just to complete this look for the first pumpkin. And again, it's just a trial and error thing, and I just had to keep going in back and forth, cutting off more as needed to thin it out and to shape it the way I wanted the shape to look. And once that part was complete, I also cut out a piece of that same fabric just to add as my stem, just to accentuate like the stem part, which is already cut out from the off-white color, but I wanted it to stand out. So next up, I am using the next color, which is like, I don't know if this is the mustard yellow, golden yellow, but I'm gonna do the same as I did with the first and trace out the shorter pumpkin. And this is just gonna be the background of that second pumpkin. And then just like I did with the first, I'm gonna be taking the off-white colored fabric and then also create that veiny, those veins, or I don't know if that's even the right thing I'm saying, but basically just for the sake of the video, that's what I'll call it, just so that when I say veining, that's what I'm talking about. So after I cut out that first piece there, I just proceed to create the veins of the pumpkin. For the second one here, I did take the off-white color, and first I cut out an oval shape, sort of like, not necessarily oval, it's more like, you'll see here shortly. I create like an oval type shape just for the center, and then I'm gonna add 2 additional like fabric pieces to go around that. And then I'm taking the off-white colored fabric as well to create the stem for the second pumpkin. So the steps are gonna repeat. It's the same steps as I did for the first pumpkin, and you'll see here exactly what I did to accomplish that. All right, so the next thing I did was cut up some strips of the brown fuzzy fabric, and I just cut some wavy shapes. No rhyme or reason to it, just wanted to add some texture to the background and a little bit more color and contrast. So I took the brown as well as the off-white colored fabric and just cut some wavy shapes just to frame out the top part. And I'm going to be doing the same with the bottom part of this decor piece. Also cutting out some wavy shapes for the bottom part. I took this burnt orange yarn. It's a textured yarn from Walmart. And I decided I needed to add a little more contrast and color to this piece. So what better way to do that than to outline the shapes of the waves of this piece here. So I thought that that added just enough of the color it needed, as well as more interest and texture. Here I'm just sort of dry fitting the yarn just to see how I wanted to place it before I hot glued everything down. Once I had everything decided on as far as layout, I went ahead and started to hot glue all of the fabric pieces down using some hot glue, of course. And I started with the bottom piece right there, and then I'm just going to continue attaching all of the background fabric pieces first before I attach the pumpkins. The last touch will be the yarn that I will use to outline the wavy shapes of this piece. So that about wraps up this first DIY. It was rather time consuming. There was a lot of details to this project, but I hope you guys enjoyed it nonetheless. For project number 2, I will be creating an acorn garland. I found a pack of these wood shape cutouts in the shape of acorns from the Dollar Tree, And the first thing I'm doing is just staining it with some folk art wood tint. And I'm essentially going to just be creating more of a textural garland using some burlap fabric or burlap just to use as my background for each of the acorns, and then wrapping some jute twine around them. This is going to be a really simple one, but it's, you know, tedious because you do have to repeat the same steps to each of the acorn pieces. Making sure that the stain was fully dry, I took these rolls of burlap fabric. It's actually more of a faux burlap. It's not like the real burlap. It's a little less messier. And I got this from the 99 when they were still in business. So I've had this since last year. All I did was just trace out each of the acorn shapes and use the first cut as my template to cut several more pieces for to cover the rest of the acorns. I'm going to be using the colors burnt orange as well as the natural colored burlap, and repeating the same steps, just tracing out one and cutting out the rest using the template from the first cut. And I'm going to alternate the colors when I create my garland, which is why I wanted to use burnt orange as well as burlap, the natural burlap color. I'm going to be using some hot glue to attach all of the burlap pieces to my acorn. Now, since this is burlap and it does have a lot of holes and stuff, it has a pretty open weave. You have to be really careful when you are using hot glue. Just make sure you use finger protectors or something, some type of utensil to help push your fabric piece down to your wood shape so that you don't burn yourself. I ended up just making like a line of glue around the edges just so that I didn't have a whole bunch of hot glue seeping through the center part of the acorn. And then I repeated the same thing, just using the natural burlap fabric, cutting out the shapes of the acorn, and then I'm going to just hot glue all the fabric pieces down with some hot glue onto each of those wood cutouts. And I'll go ahead and let you watch this portion because it's pretty much repetitive steps, and then I'll jump right back in for the next step. So for the next step, I took some burnt orange colored yarn and wrapped it around each of the orange acorns. And all I did was just tied it multiple times or twisted it around multiple times down just the center of the acorn, just sort of eyeballing it, and then hot gluing it in certain points just to keep everything steady. And I repeated that with the rest of the orange acorns. And then I also took some green colored yarn and then I wrapped the natural colored acorns, repeating the same steps. I will be topping off each of these acorns down the center using some leaves. They're little embellishments that I found at Hobby Lobby last season or last year. I got it on clearance and it's really cute. It looks like a little button, but it's just a little leaf embellishment with a button down the middle, and you'll see that here shortly. That's what I will be embellishing each of these acorns, just to add more cuteness and fun. And these are the little embellishments I was speaking of. I'm sure they have these in the fall section this year, but again, I picked mine up last year. And they have a variety of different styles of leaves, but they also have like a little cute button in the center. And I just sort of skipped over each color, like just making sure that I alternated the color sequence so that everything wasn't like the same, in the same pattern. And I took my piercing tool here. I'm just sort of poking through the burlap fabric because I did cover up the hole that came with the acorns, and I needed to use the hole to string my fabric or my paper yarn through. And this little piercing tool is from Dollar Tree. It came in really handy. All I did was just poke it right through the existing hole through the burlap fabric, just like this. And I could have used jute twine or some type of twine to string through the holes, but I decided I was going to do something different. This is like paper covered wire. It's from Hobby Lobby. And again, it's from the fall section, but I got mine last year. And it's just in this brown paper color. And all I did was just weave this through the holes of the acorn, and then just making sure that I had even spacing in between each acorn, or at least as even as I can get them. I didn't measure or anything, so everything was just eyeballing. And I just wanted to run the little string or wire through each of the hole, and then wrap it a few times around the stem just for security. And then I didn't really knot it or anything, but I did make sure to sort of wrap it multiple times just for added security. And I apologize for the bad angle here. I thought I was in frame, but I guess I was too caught up in doing this DIY that I didn't realize I was out of frame. So hopefully the next few acorns that I attach to this paper wire will be in better view. It's basically just weaving the wire through the hole and then just wrapping that little stem around multiple times. Really nothing special, but I just do this until everything is attached to the wire. And you'll just want to make sure that you leave enough leeway on each side, because if you plan on hanging your garland, you'll want to have a little extra space on each side to be able to hang it up. But this would make a cute little decor just for setting it on a table, like in a tablescape or in a vignette. I have mine sort of displayed among all of the fall crafts that I've done, and it looks really cute that way. But it would be cute as well just hanging on a wall, maybe across like a picture or something like that. But so essentially I just repeat the same steps until all of the acorns are attached. And here I'm just trying to make sure everything is evenly spaced out, and then that pretty much does it for this DIY. I ended up having too short of a piece on the right once I finished, which is why it's better to give yourself more room to start with, like when it comes to trying to measure out how much of the wire or the string you're using you're going to need. It's kind of hard to gauge, but it's better to calculate more than to have less. But luckily I was able to add the last acorn to the left side, which was essentially my starting point, but it all worked out in the end. Hopefully you guys like this idea. I think it came out super adorable, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. So now that all the acorns are attached, I'm just sort of spreading them out and then just straightening everything out the way I want them to look. And the great thing about this paper covered wire is that it is bendable, so it's easy to manipulate. But again, you can also use like jute twine or yarn or ribbon, whatever you decide will work for you. Moving right along to project number 3. Here's another super cute and easy DIY project, and this is the pumpkins that I used as my template for the first DIY. And I'm gonna go ahead and make this into a tabletop decor. I'm gonna use both pumpkins for this project here. First thing I wanted to do was to remove all of the embellishments that was on here. That right there on top is just like sort of like a papery material. It does leave the imprint, so you can definitely sand it off if you wish, but I just painted over it. I used the color Oyster. This is the same color that I used for the first DIY. It's that pretty neutral color. And then for the second one, I just painted it in the color Pumpkin by Waverly. That was just some orange burlap that I will be using to create like a ribbon to go across. So that burlap ribbon was on the thicker side, so all I did was just cut a strip down the center and then just remove the stitching that ran across each side, and then frayed the edges, just pulling on the corner of the strings, and then it creates a frayed look, and then I just cut off the excess. I painted the second pumpkin in this pumpkin colored chalk paint, and then I took some Decrepit Dust by DIY and just tried to create some shadows. I not very good at doing this part here, but I did try my best. But you can skip over this step if this isn't your look, but I just wanted to add some depth to this and not make everything look flat. So again, this is just some Decrepit Dust that I just dusted on just to add some shadows and some veins or whatever you want to call it. And then I did the same with the second pumpkin as well. So for the next step, it was time to start attaching all my pieces together. I took this beaded pumpkin that I got last year, and I wasn't sure if I was going to use it, but as I was trying to arrange or stretch out the wire to straighten it up, they came apart. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and use the beads that came on this pumpkin and use it to embellish one of the pumpkins here just to make it more farmhouse. So this was a happy accident. So before I proceed to do that, I needed to glue all my pieces together, but I needed to arrange it in the way that I wanted it to look. I used some hot glue once I figured out how I wanted my things to lay out. And then I'm using this little stand, which I took apart from another Dollar Tree decor. And that's the great thing about the decor pieces from Dollar Tree is you can dismantle things and use pieces from it for other projects. And before attaching that to the stand, I did take my burlap fabric and then hot glue that to the entire surface of the pumpkins, just running it across the entire area. And then that's just gonna add a little bit of that decorative element and texture. And I'm also gonna be taking this Hello Fall little laser cutout from Dollar Tree. I added like a scrap piece of raffia ribbon or bow that was attached to another decor piece and just use that to embellish the top of my stem. And I was going to paint this Hello Fall word. However, I decided that I like the contrast of the natural wood against the orange pumpkin color. So I kept it as is. And then I was gonna go ahead and start gluing all of the beads. I wanted them to be in an alternating color, so I chose to just decorate the grayish looking pumpkin on the left, just using hot glue to glue down all of the beads. Again, I'm using orange and white just in an alternating fashion so that it can embellish that section there, since it is it's plain on that side. So after I did that, it definitely made this project look more farmhouse and a lot cuter. Now that all the wood beads are hot glued, I went ahead and continued to embellish this just a little bit more. I took some wood shape cutouts, pumpkin cutouts, and those are just left over again from my stash. And then I took a small and a larger pumpkin and then decided to hot glue that to the grayish looking pumpkin. Then I also decided to wrap the stem of the orange pumpkin using some jute twine. So the last thing I did was create a simple bow using this pretty orange gingham ribbon. I just did a shoestring bow and tied it down the center with a jute twine and then wrapped that around the stem, hot gluing it down into place. And once that part was done, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue this pumpkin set to the little stand that you see there on the left. And that's going to prop this decor up, making it into a tabletop decor. And I think this came out really pretty. I hope you guys enjoyed this project and got some great ideas using these Dollar Tree items. You can customize any decor, just putting your own spin on like something that might already be made, but not necessarily your taste, you know, or your color. But you can spruce up any simple decor just by taking it apart and redoing it to make it your own. I added a lot of hot glue to the back side of this, just making sure that this holds steady and that everything is secure and ready for decorating. So hopefully this video is giving you some sort of inspiration to create your own DIYs for fall this year. Let me know in the comments if you like this project and this idea and if you would consider recreating this.